Hey GracePointe family, I'm Randy Scott from Topeka, Kansas. Welcome to the service, no matter where you are in the world. No matter who you love or how you love, you are welcome here, and please enjoy the service.
Welcome to GracePointe.
We are a progressive Christian church,
loving our community by gathering in our homes.
Even as we practice social distancing,
we're asking big questions about what it means to be human,
what it means to love our neighbors,
and what it means to follow Christ.
We're cultivating a safe virtual space to deconstruct or reconstruct,
to question and to grow.
We are welcoming, affirming, and fully inclusive.
Because who you are and who you love are celebrated here.
While we may be physically apart from one another,
we believe we're never truly alone.
You are never alone.
We're together in this.
We're together in this. So even though we can't give you a hug just yet,
we want you to know that you are beloved.
You are included.
And you are affirmed.
Welcome to GracePointe.
Welcome to GracePointe.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
What's up? Take a look around, the sun's looking down. Everybody running with their head in the ground. Double X with the smile, walking dead for a while. Everybody running with their heads in the ground. Open your eyes, remember you're royal. Pick up that crown, get your head out that soil. Live for your dreams, don't wait for tomorrow. Yeah, 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 yeah. Good morning, seems you've been sleeping for a while. Good morning, and it's time to wake up, morning child. Good morning, the sun is here to tell you who you are. Listen up, baby boy, you a star. Say, oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning, oh, 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 oh. Good morning, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ain't it funny how you can struggle with the smile, but Jah keeps the sun right above them clouds. Rain falls down on every man's house. Jah keeps the sun right above the clouds. Good morning, seems you've been sleeping for a while. Good morning, and it's time to wake up, wake up. Good morning, the sun is here to tell you who you are. Listen up, baby girl, you a star. Say, oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning, oh, 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 oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good morning, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning, oh, 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 oh. Good morning, good morning, yeah, 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 yo, yo. Let me pour you some coffee, no sugar. Heat it on the block and put down the Ruger. Get a gun and Cupid, he'll be my shooter. Get a gun and Cupid, he'll be my shooter. Wake up the Paul, wake up the Reg. Wake up the working man digging the ditch. Wake up my enemy, let's build a bridge. Wake up the rebel with reasons to live. Good morning, seems you've been sleeping for a while. Good morning, and it's time to wake up, wake up. Good morning, the sun is here to tell you who you are. Listen up, baby boy, you a star. Say, oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Good morning. Good morning, y'all.
This is Randy Scott again, and this is Martin Luther King weekend, and we acknowledge his fight for civil rights. We need volunteers for the band and hospitality team. If you're interested in being a music volunteer, scan the QR code and follow the band volunteer form button. For all other volunteer positions, tap the general volunteer form button. We are extending our online gatherings through the end of January. Join us for our annual business meeting this Wednesday, January 19th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. We'll discuss business looking forward to 2021 and new business looking ahead to 2022. Young Adult Meetup is back February. This group is a chance for people ages 20 to 35-year-old at GracePointe to meet, make friends, and talk about issues most important to them at this stage in their lives. Mark your calendars for our first meeting of 2022 on Thursday, February 3rd from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Disc and Cider. We will now meet the first and third Thursday of each month. Tap the Young Adult Meetup button on the QR code for information on meetings and YAM Facebook group. After 2 successful community gatherings, we are eager to start care groups again, and we want to do it as safely as possible. we've created a survey to indicate care groups interested in as we prepare this year. We are willing to host a group or want to be a part of this group. Please take 1 minute to fill out the survey so we can successfully launch in-person groups early next year. Tap the Care Group survey button on the QR code to find this survey. Our Q1 InReach is Open Table Nashville, a nonprofit interfaith community that disrupts cycles of poverty, journeys with the marginalized, and provides education about issues, homelessness, and to learn more about how you can help with donations and trainings, tap the InReach button. If what we do at GracePointe is meaningful to you and would like to donate in the future of our community, here's how you can help. Text GracePointe at 77977. Go to gracepointe.net-give. Use the QR code on the screen. Mail checks to our P.O. Box 90160, Nashville, Tennessee 37209.
Hello, GracePointe. Josh Scott here. Excited to be with you again. Last week you heard from Mary Kelly, one of our nominees for one of our 2 open leadership council positions. Today I have with me David Surbaugh. Hi, David.
Hello, Josh.
Thanks for being here with me today. And
happy to be here.
And thanks for being willing to be nominated for LC. I want to do what we did last week and just kind of give people a chance who maybe don't know you. I know you've been around GracePointe for a while, but maybe folks who don't know you, to get a little bit of your experience at GracePointe and what your hopes are for the future. So could you just begin, David, by telling us a little bit about how long you've been at GracePointe and how you ended up here with us?
So Susan and I have been at GracePointe going on 10 years. It frankly at times seems longer than that. You know, I was here, and actually this would be my second go round on the leadership council. My first go round was during a lot of the tension and a lot of the turmoil of moving from Franklin to Brentwood and then eventually becoming an urban church in Nashville. And you know what, at that time, you know, was really only months. When I look back on it now, it feels like years. So
well, you were on the LC when I was in the process of being hired.
That's right. Yep. And that was a wise decision. So.
Well, I appreciate you saying. I'll slip you that $5 at the end of that.
Okay.
I'll Venmo you.
Actually, inflation has gone up to 10. So you know, and GracePointe was just a great fit. You know, it was a place, it was a space where there was both, my sense, a lot of both theological and sociological flexibility. And rather than, you know, kind of walking in and, you know, where you were being force-fed all the answers, there was the sense that, you know, you could think creatively along with other people and, you know, kind of both grow yourself as a person and as a Christian, but also grow a church. And that was really appealing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I love most about GracePointe is that it really does feel like a laboratory sometimes. And that we're testing theories and hypotheses all the time. And when we find better information, we're moving on to better information. So, you know, you've been here for 10 years. The community is a great fit. What are you excited about when it comes to GracePointe right now, especially moving into this? You've been on the leadership council, you've had a break, you're nominated to come back. What are you excited about where we are, and what do you think these are some areas you hope to see us grow in over the next 3 years?
So I guess there's a sense in which, I think the church, what we really need to be about is sort of helping modern people kind of live out what it means to be a follower of Christ, the risen Christ, in a modern world. And, that's filled with ambiguities, with contradictions. And I think people are looking, maybe not for the answer, but they're looking for, and maybe they would get the answer through, kind of the experience of other people. So I think that's why the whole idea of being connected and being in a faith community is really, really important. So, so I think, in a sense, given the fact that we're in our third wave of the pandemic, hopefully we're going to see this, sort of fall away, and we can really get back to being the church that we want to be. I think we've been hampered by that. The fact that, even now we've had to go back to meeting online and not meeting in person. That's out of necessity, but it's certainly not the way we'd all rather have it happen. And I know you even feel that, in terms of you'd much rather speak to a group of people in a building than talking to a computer. So I think once we get this behind us, that we can really get about the business of being the church we want to be. And really, I think, churches ought to be organic realities, and therefore the visioning part of the church, which I think is your job and also the job of the Leadership Council, is to reformat that periodically. We can't always be what we were 5 years ago. There are new challenges. It's a new world, and we need to be creatively and agilely kind of readdressing who we are and what our vision is. I think a couple of things. One is, I know that we've got money in the bank, which wasn't the case when I rolled off the Leadership Council a couple of years ago. And so I think a big challenge is going to be, what are we going to do with that money? I feel uncomfortable with the idea of just sort of socking it away in some sort of a investment account. I think that we need to be stewards of that and use it to really advance GracePointe Church, and in doing that, the kingdom of God. And I know one question is going to be where we're going to meet, and that will be a thorny issue. My preference would be to continue to rent, maybe not where we are now, but find a place that really works for us, and then and do that as cheaply as possible, and then invest in staff and in a ministry in a real big way. Just go all in on that. And so that would be part of it. I know when I filled out the form, the nominating form, one thing that I really spoke about was my concerns about racial justice in the world we live in. It's really interesting to me that I've read an essay a couple of weeks ago where the guy was saying that if you look at the two sides of this really conflicted world we live in, and you think of them in political parties, Republican and Democrat, that the core groups in both of those parties are Christians. For the Republican Party, it's the white evangelical church. For the Democratic Party, it's the black church. And I think, maybe if, revival is a word that we use in Christian circles, maybe revival would be for those two groups to, put down their hostilities towards each other and figure out how to work together for both the sake of the country and also the sake of the church.
Yeah, and I think, and I would say your sentiment about GracePointe going forward has to be a community that cares about justice, right, in all forms, but especially in the era we find ourselves in the context in our country. Racial justice is key. Yeah. Figuring out how we as a community are continuing, to do the work to become anti-racist, for example, right? Where we're not just saying, oh, we're not racist. Well, actually, we want to be anti-racist. We want to make sure that we are doing the work to combat those. We talked last week, and we're going to be talking today about white Christian nationalism, and that is a serious concern in this country right now. And so, making sure that we are doing our part to be leading and moving in a way toward justice and equity.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So David, appreciate so much your involvement here at GracePointe over the years. I appreciate you being a part of the LC that brought me here, because this has been such a gift to me and to our family to be a part of this community. And I'm looking forward to hopefully serving with you again. Is there anything else you would like to share with the community before we wrap up today?
Well, just simply, I'm honored to be considered. I look forward, assuming that my nomination is approved, I look forward to getting to work and hard at it for the next 3 years.
That's right. That's right. All right, Dave. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time and grateful for your service to GracePointe.
Okay. Take care.
No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace.
This is the color of the day. I am tired of seeing from a sheltered place. Who am I to speak? I've never known your song, so I'll turn the other cheek. The world is aflame. The makers and the martyrs burn to gray. Your words are ablaze. Signs being struck by bullets raised to say, I cannot breathe. These are the words I can say. Use my voice if you wish, but I've never known my place. Hands up, do not shoot. No justice, no peace, no luxury, no loot. The world is aflame. The victims and the bullies burn to gray. My words are ablaze. Signs being struck by bullets raised to say, I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. This is the color of the day. Raise it up like a flag whose on we will wait. Our words are ablaze. Signs being shot by cameras work to say. Our words will be louder, above and beyond the armor. Our words will have power, above and beyond the armor. Our words will ring louder than their guns. I'm gonna breathe. Justice. Yes, we will breathe. No justice. No peace. We're gonna breathe. Our words will be
Hello, GracePointe. It is so good to be with you today. We're so glad you're joining us. I'm Josh Scott, and I'm here today with Michael Corey Dandridge, the legend, Corey, thanks so much for being here with me today.
It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you for letting me come on here today.
Well, and as most of you know, Corey's on our staff team here at GracePointe. He lives slightly outside the Nashville area in Pennsylvania, and he is our online gathering host. And so those of you who join online every week, I know we're online today and the next couple of weeks through the end of January, but those of you who are online every week, you see Corey there all the time. And he's joining me today because we're going to follow up my sermon from last week. So last week, I don't know, was it a sermon? Was it a rant? I don't know what it was.
It was an anthem. It was.
There you go. It
was a rallying call.
There you go. That's what I hope. And I've had so much. We talked about the problem of white Christian nationalism last week, and I've had lots of interesting interactions. I've interacted online with lots of people who have said, "I wish more people and more pastors and more churches were addressing this."
That is really the whole crux of this whole thing, that it needs to be broadcast from every pulpit now. I mean, we're finally at a point where something can actually happen. When George Floyd happened, the world was kind of like on pause, and we were able to take a look at everything from every angle. Mm-hmm. And we're finally at this point that at least we can address this. And as a pastor, you should be able to be free to address it.
That's right. Well, because everything's political, and because now everything doesn't have to be partisan, right? Like that's a truth, but everything is political in the sense that politics, it's about how we order our common life, like how we decide to live together. And so everything ends up being political. And so I want to follow up last week's talk, sermon, rant with this week. And Corey and I are going to have a conversation about how this problem of white Christian nationalism has particularly affected communities of color. And I just want to begin by acknowledging that we're sitting here and it's Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. It's the weekend coming up on Monday where we honor and remember the life and legacy and the accomplishments of Dr. King. And Corey, I can't help but think about on Monday and over this weekend, we're going to see all kinds of posts from everybody probably, but all kinds of posts from politicians who are going to like extol the virtue and the legacy of King, who are now actively working to make voting harder, who are actively, and it strikes me as interesting. And I think this is true. It's been true of Jesus too. Like, it's easy to transform someone after their death to make them more palatable. Right. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, it's really, they're just using it to kind of like skirt the issue. They're not even really addressing the issue. They're just trying to put, a dress on a pig, just trying to dress up the pig and just make it presentable for one day. Mm-hmm. And it's ridiculous. I've been reading ever since you asked me to kind of like, you want to have this conversation. I started reading a book by Anthea Butler called White Evangelical Racism. Mm-hmm. This book, OMG, it's a concise but thorough read and explanation of where this racism comes from. And in the book, it talks about presidents and politicians, how they started, where they started. They tried to start talking about the issue maybe in the 90s, where racial reconciliations kind of came about through the church, and so they're trying to kind of combine politicians with that, but it didn't work out. It failed. It failed. That racial reconciliation, it failed as soon as Barack Obama was elected or was even running for president, and Sarah Palin came on and she started talking about all her, trying to put in new scares for people for the church, and they were excited for her to be a part of McCain's campaign because he was drowning. But as soon as she came on, the church rallied right around her, and they said, "Oh wow, you know what? She's right on." And then she said some crazy things on her campaign. You know, I can't believe a black man. You're not going to let a black man be a leader of this country. He needs to be a first string black man, not a second string like Obama. I mean, she said some crazy things, and politicians jumped on this and tried to, you know, that's when the whole racial reconciliation just kind of like went out the door.
You know, Corey, and this is going to sound very, you know, white man of me here, okay? But I had this sense of Obama winning 2 terms. There was like, oh, we are now finally making progress on this issue of racism, white supremacy in America. But I think what I actually now realize is what it did is it actually ripped open and showed us the ugly underbelly that was already there. And it was, I mean, I heard stuff people would say that was just completely terrible about Barack Obama. But I still felt like, well, as a country though, like yes, there are people, but as a country, maybe we're getting to that place King hoped for. And I think what we saw in 2016 and beyond has been actually we're maybe farther from that than we were when Barack Obama first ran in 2008.
When like you said, once he started to run and once he got elected and for 2 terms, it really exposed the underbelly of the Christian church, you know, of many Christian churches at that point. And I can tell you from experience that I was on staff at a church, at an evangelical church. It was non-denominational, but they were all very evangelical in spirit, in, you know, nomenclature, and just in a lot of ways. And I can remember being in staff meetings and talking about emails that I received that were circulating amongst the elders of the church, where one of the senior elders sent an email with Obama with, like, you know, as an ape, and his wife as an ape, and all these different emails that were going around at that time. And I addressed, me and one of the other Black members on staff, we were like, "What? This is wrong." And we took it to the pastor and the pastor's son, and they both said, "Well, you know, so-and-so is old. You know, he's an old man. You know, he doesn't mean any harm." What? What do you mean? What do you mean he doesn't mean any harm? But see, and then in that same time frame, or during that whole elections campaign series, even the pastor himself, from the pulpit, he said, "You know, if Obama wins re-election, you know what? I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to move out the country. I'm leaving." And once he said that, my wife at the time and we had exchange students, we literally stood up and walked out in the middle of his sermon.
Yeah.
Literally. That was just beyond the pale from us. I was literally done.
There was no curiosity about, and I'm trying to think of, like, how can you end up defending this person who sent this horribly racist email instead of caring for the wounds it created in a person of color who received it? And instead of, like, addressing, like, this is out of bounds, they end up defending the person who sent it. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's very believable, but you know what I mean? Like, it should be completely unbelievable.
It's just insane. I mean, it really kind of, like, you know, I was kind of a bad boy at that time because after I walked out, I felt bad, and you know, I came back as a good Christian boy, as you know, as I was. But then I remember wearing Obama t-shirts from the pulpit when I would receive the offering or do announcements or whatever. I would have an Obama t-shirt, and I know most of this church was like conservative, white, you know. That was my rebellious time.
Well, we you know, good on you. So I also wonder, you know, and everything's not about January 6th last year, right? Like January 6th was sort of a really visible sort of symptom of a disease that's been spreading for a long time. And so, I wonder, because we cannot separate the three strands of this: white, Christian, nationalism. They're all bound up together. Now, of course, that doesn't mean all white people are nationalists or all Christians are nationalists or all Christian. But what it does mean is that we have a serious problem. And I wonder, how has this impacted you? How has it impacted your family? And how has this altered your experience of living in this country or identifying as Christian? Any of those things. I'm interested to hear your experience.
It's very interesting. Every election cycle, my blood pressure rises, and I get super involved. I get super, interested in what's going on with the country and what's going on with the election. And because even now, Obama's not in the cycle at this point.
Yep.
It's really about what options are you supporting? What platforms are you supporting that support racist, feelings towards people of color, not just Black people, but just everyone. And it's really tough. Like sometimes even just thinking about coming on, talking about this, I can well up, tears can well up in my eyes because of just experiencing this day to day. I have family members that I have to deal with. I have on both sides that really just, they make me think, like, is it really possible? Is it really a chance for this, for reconciliation, for life together? I mean, just even look at reading that book, Anthea's book. She talked about how Graham, what's his name?
Franklin?
Father.
Billy.
Father.
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham, he basically talked about, he brought in the whole boogeyman of communism. But also there was an undertone of racism in there also. Mm-hmm. I mean, this book was just amazing. People have to read it. They really have to read it. And then how even Franklin Graham brought in the boogeyman of the Muslims, especially around 9/11.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just, and now it's the whole country is like on a whole level of fear. And these are actually just dog whistles for the underlying issues of racism.
That's right.
That are pervading. There are code words like, "Oh, I'm from a small town. I'm from a real American. I'm a real American." Like, what is this?
What does that mean?
Words that that they're used to hide behind, and you're using issues of abortion. I mean, we don't even have to go into the history of the moral right. That whole thing.
I was reminded because of Facebook memories that something my oldest said to me while we were sitting on our couch on January 6th watching all the images unfold. And he said something like, if this had been a Black Lives Matter protest, this would have gone very differently.
Totally differently.
Right. And I think that for me, the hardest piece of this is how deeply ingrained, and it's not a new problem, right? I mean, Christians in this South, slaveholding defending Christians, were using the Bible and were using religion to uphold their white supremacist racist system, right? So it's not new. I think it's more insidious now.
Yeah.
And I think it's more insidious because now, people say whatever they want and they say, well, I'm not a racist, right? I love everybody. But then they end up supporting systems and policies that dehumanize and demonize and just erode it's just, and so in some ways it's more insidious.
to your point, to that point right there, one of the latest catchphrases is that, you hear somebody say I'm not a racist. I don't even see color. What do you mean? I want you to see my color. For 300 years, you've been overlooking my color.
Yeah.
See me.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm a man. Whatever you want to call it, I am a man. That's it. Don't neglect my color. I'm a black man. Excuse that. It's crazy.
And I think they think they're sounding super with it and super, kind of correct, because I think they think they are, but I think they're missing in that is that actually that's essentially trying to erase part of who you are.
Exactly.
Right. It's an erasure ultimately. And so, yeah, which, it's so deeply embedded. And I think that's one of the main issues of how deeply embedded this, so much so that it's possible. And it's possible that I lived my entire life, Corey, pretty much my entire life, thinking that this was just getting better and better and better. And I don't think anybody would, of course we've made strides, right? King's work and the work of civil rights leaders since then, and the work of people today, it's still going on, right? This work is still happening. People are still campaigning for equity and justice, and that's still going on. And so I think we need to recognize that. But I think it's also important to recognize we got a long way to go. And it's important to recognize that in a really, really problematic way, evangelicalism is sort of propping this up.
Yes.
Right. And so they're actually, it becomes so intertwined that it's almost impossible to disentangle from, white supremacy without also being able to disentangle from this Christian nationalism and evangelicalism that's all sort of knotted together, that just keeps this thing perpetuating over and over and over again.
I think and people wonder why, I've heard people say, why don't Black people come to, predominantly white churches, or why are they not coming to the space? Because I can offer just maybe just a thought about it, that it's a trust issue. Are you going to actually hear me? Are you actually going to respect me? Are you going to hear my concerns and my cries sometimes? Sometimes I just need a place to cry. And, I was listening to a podcast by Q Christian Fellowship. I think Luther Young was actually doing the talk at the time. And he basically said, and he was really coming from a LGBTQ plus aspect in regards to the Black church and Black people in that, that realm. And he said, to be honest, there are queer racist people out here. Even though they are supposedly open-minded and accepting, but there's still some racism in there. And I think that's one thing we have to continue to look at ourselves. Do we have any racist ideals, any racist, the littlest thing? Just take self-inventory of our own selves and say, is what I'm doing, am I being truly accepting of everyone? Do I actually hear their voice and not just say, well, I'm so glad that they're here, or I'm so glad that they're participating, but are they really a part of this organization? And I feel like our church, our community is very accepting and very welcoming. And I feel so comfortable. I say it so many times. This is my last stop. This is my last stop. I will never set foot, or I will never be a member of an evangelical church that refuses to talk about racism, that refuses to deal with the issues of the day. that have been in church history. I refuse. And I am so glad to be a part of a community that does that. And we're talking, and we're starting to take action. And that's the part that keeps me coming every day. That keeps me coming every week. I love being a part of this community because of that. And because I know for a fact in my 50 years of life and 30 of it being in evangelical spaces, white evangelical spaces, that is a first. And to know that you're actually going to have our back online, in social media and from the pulpit or whatever, that means more to me than anything.
Well, Corey, I feel like, thank you. I'm obviously thrilled to hear that. I feel like I got a long way to go, and I know as a community we still have a long way to go. But we're on that journey, and we want to do it right. We want to be, we want to be allies. We want to be supportive. We want this community to reflect you, and to reflect your concerns, and anybody who's a part of GracePointe. We want our community to reflect their concerns. I think the thing that really surprises me is that for some white folks like who look a lot like me, when they hear this idea of self-inventory and there's probably racism, even if I'm not aware of it, right? Like this whole idea that we've been so enmeshed and ingrained. I've been so submerged in that kind of context throughout my entire life. So that constant evaluation, like for some people, the idea, that you might the idea that you might think there might be anything like that I need to work on is offensive to me, and it may, you're calling me a whatever. No. I'm just saying that when you have lived your entire life submerged in something, you're probably going to have a little water on you, even if you're not aware of it. And so, to your point, just that inventory, that willingness to ask, this attitude, this opinion, this thing I thought, this thing I was going to say, this thing I was going to, like, laying that, like, where does that come from? Where does that come from? And I think that's such an important task.
Josh, I'm not asking, I don't think the Black community is asking you to walk on eggshells. It's just being aware. Yeah. Just taking that you don't have to walk on eggshells around. Did I say no? I'm good. I'm good. I'm a 7, so I just can't think.
Me too.
I run with it. I can roll with it. But not everyone is like me. But yes, but like I said, I'm not asking people to be walking on eggshells, but just keep in mind, keep it in the back of your mind to just kind of reevaluate every so often. Just, take that inventory.
Yeah. Corey, one of the gifts over the last couple of years, and there have been so many things over the last couple of years that haven't been gifts. And if you can, I don't know, can you hear the noise at my house right now? Our kids are on an NTI day, a virtual learning day, because of COVID outages in the school system. And so I don't know what's happening upstairs, but it's breaking loose. But I want to say there have been so many things that haven't been gifts over the last couple of years, but meeting you, and of course, us expanding and becoming an online community as well, and meeting so many of our online friends, but being able to meet you and you being a part of our team has been such a gift. And I'm always grateful for your voice, and our staff hears your voice more probably, and the online community does more probably. But I'm really grateful that you would come and this is like sort of, opening your soul up a little bit and saying, hey, see me for who I am. And so I'm just grateful for you and your willingness to engage in these conversations and to help lead our community in the way of justice and equity and peace.
It's truly an honor. It really, I don't take it lightly. I really don't take it lightly. I feel like, we're at a point that churches, there are starting to be more affirming churches, not just for LGBTQ issues, but also just for welcoming everyone to the space. And now we can kind of have a conversation. Now, I think now is the time to actually push the envelope and say, you know what, this is what we're about. And you're doing it. And other churches are doing it, but it's not enough. And like you said, it wasn't always a long, that Christian right is actually a small a small amount compared to the whole country. Because number one, like you said, we were able to elect a Black president. We were able to, see some, not justice, but see accountability happen for George Floyd and for Ahmaud Arbery and for some of these events that have been happening for years, for decades. Now we're starting to see some kind of accountability. And I think this is the time, and our community, our space is a welcome door, an open door for that to happen, for people to walk in and say, you know what, we're going to go out into the community. We're going to be a part of what is going on in our community. We're not going to stay in these four walls and say, you know what, we hope they come. No, we hope we go and be in the community. We're not trying to win souls. That's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry. We're trying to, be a part of the community and not just say, well, I'm over here, I hope they hang out. No, we're going to, like we do with the LGBTQ parade, the gay pride parade, there's other, causes that we can be a part of. And I'm thankful that we're actually starting to look at those things. So that's important to me.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I think that we, as a community, I feel like the energy is there for that. And that we want to be that kind of community in the world, a community that doesn't just talk, but a community that acts, and a community that, people use the phrase the right side of history, so much. And I know people kind of roll their eyes at this point, but I think about that all the time. I want to be on the right side of history because, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of people I know who would quote unquote have marched with King, but they weren't marching necessarily for George Floyd or Ahmaud or, I do think you're right that's so much of that injustice had gone undealt with for so long that when we were awaiting the verdict in the George Floyd trial, the murder trial, I just held my breath and expected more of the same. And it was a welcome surprise that, oh, okay, maybe the needle is moving a bit and maybe we can actually do this as a country. And I think that, also my concern is for the Christian tradition that we're a part of. And how do we make sure that the Christian tradition in America, because it's where I live, at least, and that's where some of us, I know we have people who are with us who are outside of the States, and I'd invite you to think about it in your own context as well. But I want to leave behind a Christian tradition for my kids if they choose to participate in it. That is not just not racist, but that is anti-racist. That is, standing alongside the LGBTQ plus community, that is standing alongside victims of abuse. I want to leave an option. It won't be the whole thing, right? We don't have that kind of we don't have that kind of influence, but a slice, a sliver that they can belong to with their integrity of their head and their heart, both being held together and not having to choose. Just
like you said in your message from last week, the early church, what they really believed and how they actually felt about nationalism. That was a big piece to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Corey, I want to give you just a chance. Is there anything else before we get ready to wrap up that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on?
No, I think we talked. I think we did. I mean, I love everybody. I really do. I love being in this community. I'm anxious to grow, continue to see it grow and continue to expand, to what is possible, what can be done, to make a change in this world. And I think we're on the precipice of something great.
Yeah, I'm in agreement and I'm hopeful with you. And I think maybe we just say this, GracePointe, we have done over these years a lot of good work. This community has done a lot of good work, and we have a lot of good work to do in front of us, a lot of learning, a lot of growing. And so let's continue to press forward together.
Yes.
Amen. All right. Thanks, GracePointe. It's always a joy to be with you. Thanks again, Corey.
Thank you.
is the remedy. It's not some hidden secret. Sharing it is not a mistake. It doesn't work if we keep it. We gotta learn to give it away. This we can all be sure of. Nothing else is enough. What is the only thing that we all need? Love is the answer. Love is the key. So let's come together. The sooner the better. Someday I hope we will see. Love is the remedy. Whoa, whoa, Love is patient, love is kind, love is always colorblind. Search the world over 1,000 times, no greater thing will you find. What is the only thing that we all need? Love is the answer, love is the key. So let's come together, the sooner the better. Someday we'll see. Oh, what is the only thing that we all need? Love is the answer, love is the key. So let's come together, the sooner the better. Someday I hope we will see. Oh, we were not meant to be enemies. Love is the remedy. Whoa, whoa,